All right, so now let's get to the basics, so the boring stuff. A project description's length can vary. This will always be determined by the granting institution, or most of the time. It usually is between 250 and 500 words, which is about 1 to 2 pages, so not super long. You're going to write it in first person, so I will be creating, or I will blah, 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 or my project will whatever. You're going to write in the present and future tenses. Now, this is very important because I feel like almost all of us, when we go to write a project proposal, project description, we say, oh, I would do this, or I could do this. But we should avoid using conditional terms like that, would and could, instead saying I am, I will. And that's because, and this will come up in a couple different places throughout the presentation, you need to think about your project description as something that you're asking for an investment in, not something you're asking for charity for, right? You are going to be doing this project no matter what, right? And you're asking for them to come on board, not saving your project or else it's not going to happen, right? Which might be, you might feel that that's actually the truth, but you need to think about it as, this is happening, this is my goal, do you want to join me or not? And this actually goes back to something I forgot to mention earlier when I was saying, let's actually go back that slide, when we were talking about the core components here. Having all of these pre-prepared not only makes you ready for answering those application questions or ready to apply for that grant, but having them already prepared actually creates a persistence of vision and a consistency that's very, very important. Because when you're applying for grants, maybe a lot of grants, maybe the same grant in subsequent years, the world will see, your audiences will see that you have a goal in mind and you're just asking for support for that goal, rather than asking for support for a variety of things, or maybe it's ever shifting because you don't have that consistency there. And that kind of makes it seem like you're just asking for the funds rather than asking for support for a particular purpose. So it looks really good to have that consistency there. So if you have these sort of already prepared and you're drawing from them for a variety of different purposes, it shows that you are driven towards one particular goal rather than in being pulled in a lot of different directions. Okay, let's go back to where we were. All right, so again, not conditional. This is something that's going to happen. You're just asking for an investment. You also want to write in using very simple words, simple sentences, and short paragraphs. And that's because, like every other document in your portfolio, in your grant proposal, in a job application, what have you, this needs to be a quick read for folks. They need to be able to read it fast because they might have hundreds, maybe even thousands of proposals to go through. In that same vein, you want to use headings and subheadings to direct them so that it helps them read quicker. And you want to write personally, as if you were writing to like a good friend or a very close colleague that you've known for several years. And you want to write excitedly because you want your passion to be contagious, for them to know this is something that you, again, are going to do no matter what. This is, what you're passionate about, and you want it to be contagious. You want them to get excited about your project as well. One of the ways in which you write excitedly is to use active verbs and very concrete and specific nouns. Active verbs just means you have the subject first. So instead of saying, my project is inspired by, which is not a bad thing, you might say such and such inspired my project, right? And then specific nouns, that means just make every single noun you use as specific as possible. It's sort of like reducing fractions in a way. So you might, let's say you're a playwright and you're trying to mount a production of your play. And so you're describing the work and you say, the third act will incorporate dance. Okay, so let's look at the noun dance and let's say, okay, can I make that more specific? Can I reduce that down any more? Oh, well, yeah, I can. Okay, so the third act incorporates early 19th century waltz in order to demonstrate blah, 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 whatever it is. So just every single noun you use, try to make it as specific as you can. And that shows that you're excited about your project. You're excited to talk about it, right? All right, so let's get into this a little bit. So one of the main documents that people confuse or are confused on, how it differs or what's the line between is an artist statement. An artist statement does cover similar material to a project description, as you're going to see. An artist statement covers what kind of art do you make, how do you make it, and why do you make it of your work as a whole. So not just one project, your whole body of work. It's the conceptual meaning and purpose behind your work. A project description also does cover some of that ground. It covers some of the conceptual underpinning of your work, but then it goes a lot more in depth into one particular project. Now, sometimes what gets confusing is you'll see something called an artist statement that then is talking about one project, and it might be from a different artist. Someone might ask you, like maybe a gallery or something might ask you for an artist statement, but you're only submitting one work or they're only showing one work. And so it's confusing. So my rule of thumb is if you are submitting both an artist statement and a project description to someone, anyone, if both the documents are being included together, then your artist statement should just be general and your project description should be in depth about one project. If you're not submitting the project description, someone just asked you for the artist statement, but you're only submitting one work or one series, then yes, talk about the conceptual underpinning of your work as a whole, but also go into a little bit of detail about that one particular project or series, because that's what you're writing this for, is to accompany one project or series, right? So that's sort of the rule. If both documents are there, just keep it general for the artist statement. If it's just an artist statement and you need to talk about one project in particular, you can, and that's okay.